Welcome to the New Consciousness Now podcast. This episode originally aired as a video on our New Consciousness Now YouTube channel. Our goal is to be a conduit for the emerging consciousness on the planet and to anchor that consciousness more solidly in the present moment for our listeners. Your hosts are Gail Wolf and Dr. Jay Eaker. Let's get into it.
And we're live.
Heyo.
Hey there.
New Consciousness Now podcast with Gail Wolf.
Dr. Jay
Eaker. Yeah, it's good, I think, in the beginning to sort of mention, what we decided to talk about was our lives, our upbringing. And if just a reminder, if people could please like us, share this if they find this interesting somehow. It could be found on all social media places, wherever you look for podcasts. And please be our friend.
Look for New Consciousness Now.
Like us. Oh, subscribe to our channel.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well,
yeah. So growing up. So one thing that's interesting that I can say.
And how we ended up here, I don't know, might go to how we ended up in this, doing all this woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange coming from where we came from, both pretty conservative backgrounds. So we ended up doing
really strange, actually.
Stuff. Yeah.
Totally.
But I kind of cut you off there. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say it's how, our upbringings, there's nothing really out of the ordinary about them, except they were, a little bit out of the ordinary, I suppose, because we grew up on farms.
Yeah, I think that's a certain specialized, niche kind of environment. That's for sure.
It's definitely different because I know in my graduating class, I had gone to school with most of the kids in that class from kindergarten all the way through graduation. Was the same kids all the way through.
Right.
And
all the way through high school graduation?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a little bit smaller time than I was, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. There was 56 kids in my graduating class.
Wow.
56.
And you knew most of those kids all the way from kindergarten on up.
Oh yeah. Everything. I mean, it was, totally.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Stockton, Illinois.
Stockton, Illinois. How many people in Stockton?
Illinois. What's that?
How many people in Stockton?
1,900.
Wow, yeah.
1,900 people. Pretty small.
Wow. Are lots of towns like that in Illinois? Like in Nebraska, there's lots of towns like most of them are like that.
Yes.
Or small.
Where the livestock outnumber the people.
Yeah, totally.
That is actually still a statistic in our county, is there are more cattle than there are humans.
Yeah, I bet.
Isn't that a trip?
That is a trip, I bet. Right.
So how about how many kids were in your class when you graduated?
It just makes you think of Bruce Springsteen. Born in the USA. Stockton, Illinois. Feels like
John
that.
Cougar Mellencamp was also another one that kind of had that way of embracing small town life in his music.
Right. Let's see. I grew up in a town called Norfolk, Nebraska.
Norfolk.
I was actually born here in Colorado, in Fort Collins, Colorado, and then my parents moved away from here when I was 2. They went back to where my dad's from, which is Norfolk, the home of Johnny Carson. That's where Johnny Carson grew up, I guess. And that's our only claim to fame. But I think 25,000 people. I don't know if there's 30,000 people there now. Probably not. Maybe 25,000 people. We got we got a super Walmart. Lots of people from around surrounding towns come to our town, Norfolk, Nebraska. We're the super Walmart. But let's see. My graduating class, I forget. It was 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And we're 100 kids in each class, I think. 300 kids maybe. I think that sounds about right. 300 kids or something.
Yeah, I think we had just over 200 in the whole high school. That's like 9, 10, 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
That's ninth grade also.
Right.
That's considered high school.
Mm-hmm. But that was probably like the only high school.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. There was
One high school.
There was a few. Was there? There was one other high school in Norfolk. So. Yep, and we lived on a farm just outside of town.
Yeah,
And,
6 miles outside of town. We had pigs and cattle and ducks and goats and dogs. We didn't have any cats because the dogs would always eat the cats, literally. Then at one point we had 10 dogs, but they kept getting run over by cars on the road. So or the coyotes would call them out and the coyotes would eat them up.
Oh my God.
That happened all the time.
Yeah, we lived right on a kind of a main thoroughfare. I don't know, it's kind of a two-lane highway, and yeah, it was a challenge to keep dogs around. Always getting hit.
Yeah, they're always getting run over. All the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's lost another one.
Like how many, I don't know, like did you guys farm?
Yeah.
Was there farming? Like how many acres did you
not a very big farm. I think we had 320 some acres, 330 some acres, something like that. So it wasn't real big. We had but 200. How was that? I think it was a 300 some acre farm. We had 80 of it was in pasture, so 200 some of it was tillable.
Mm-hmm.
But we had 80 acres of pasture, which was pretty cool because that was all like trees and backwoods and streams, and we had artesian spring coming out of the rock where you could actually clear a little mud and dirt off the rock, and you could actually stick your face in there and drink the water coming out of the ground. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. See,
now that we know what we know about runoff, field runoff, and the chemicals and stuff that's in the water, it's like, well, was that such a good idea? I think,
probably back then just fine. I mean, if it's a spring, it's probably fine.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, we lived right by a creek.
Yeah.
And we used to swim in it, but I wouldn't swim in it anymore.
Oh, you wouldn't? Why not?
Same thing you just mentioned. It's like full of chemicals.
Yeah, which is too bad. It's really too bad. Mm-hmm. We had actually see, one of the problems around in Northwest Illinois, and I assume Wisconsin as well, is that it's a lot of limestone, and limestone inherently has these fissions or cracks in it that form vertically. Mm-hmm. When you have rainwater that comes, the rainwater will wash into the ground, but then hit one of these cracks and shoot straight down instead of other areas where there's more filtering that happens. Mm-hmm. And so it's easier for pollution to get into the aquifer in the ground. Huh. So we had so on the block that I live on, I think it's like 11 miles to get around this block that we're on. Or no, I take that back. I exaggerated. It's 6. It's 6 miles to get around this block. That's right. It's like 5.8 something. On this block, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 neighbors got cancer.
Oh.
2 of them have passed. Yeah, there's just a lot of cancer around here.
Whoa.
A lot of cancer.
Ugh. That's rough.
Yeah, it sucks. Who wants that? I don't.
Any particular kind of cancer?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I don't know.
I think it has to do with the drinking water or whatever.
I mean, I think so. That's my hypothesis. Mm-hmm. I think it's my thought was the field runoff and the drinking water that got in there, Right. And in fact, there was my parents went to nutritionist, naturopath. Both my parents are full of like
heavy
field
metals.
runoff. What's that?
Heavy metals.
well, no, the more the pesticides.
Uh-huh.
And when I first got to Illinois, I got checked out and I didn't have any in my system at all. And then I went
Hmm.
recently, got checked out. Now I've got pesticides in my system. So
Oh, huh.
I know I'm ingesting the stuff.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, like growing up, they didn't do like as much pesticides and herbicides like they do today. Like today, like what they did back then was, I don't know how much time you spent sitting on a tractor cultivating, but I spent hours and hours and hours sitting on a tractor that drug this cultivator behind, which is basically a
Yep.
multi-row hoe. Basically, it cuts underneath the rows and then throws dirt up against the corn stalks and covers up any weeds that are there. And we had to do that like two times for every field that we had. But nowadays, they have genetically modified corn seed
Yep.
that is resistant to herbicides and pesticides. So my brother, who still has the farm there, he gets this big boom, pulls this big boom sprayer behind the tractor and just hoses it down with herbicides and pesticides. And again, the corn is like resistant to that, but it kills the weeds and it kills the bugs. What is the deal? Also it's genetically modified. It's Roundup Ready, it's called, which means that it resists Roundup, which will kill anything green except for
Yep.
this corn.
Roundup kills everything.
So that's weird. And then if cutworms, there's certain larvae of some kind of moth, they're called cutworms. They
Yep.
will burrow into the corn, and the plants die because they burrow into the stalk of the corn. If a cutworm eats that stalk, now it will die. The corn poisons the
Corn
cutworm.
poisons the cutworm.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
It's genetically
Because
modified to do that.
you could green chop corn, which for people who don't know what green chopping is, it's you basically go through and you cut down the corn when it's
Grind
just
it up.
starting to turn and turn brown and die a little bit.
Hmm.
You go through and you basically cut it all and you grind the corn stalk, the corn itself, you grind it all up,
Right.
and then you feed it to cattle.
Yeah. Yeah. We
So
had
I'm
a huge,
wondering,
huge silage pit
a
where
huge
we did that
silage,
too.
called it silage, yeah.
Hmm.
And so I'm wondering, okay, so you've got this pesticide and herbicide and God knows whatever else in there, and this GMO corn you're
It's
feeding it to
DNA. Its
cattle.
DNA is altered.
DNA is altered.
Yeah. You feed it to the cattle, and yeah, I don't know.
And they, I
I'm not
mean,
exactly
and
sure.
we're eating those burgers,
Right.
we're
I'm
eating them
sure.
burgers.
I'm sure. I mean, I've heard stuff out there. I'm not an expert in it by any means, of course. I can't comment on it at all. If feeding genetically modified stuff to the cattle, and then we eat the cattle, if that, what effect that might have on us.
I
But
don't know
it
either.
kills. I mean, what do they say? Like your DNA is. They did the Human Genome Project, and they thought like, oh, like your DNA, a human DNA should be really a lot different than, say, I can't remember what it is, a fly or a worm, or I can't remember which one of those it is. I think it's something that's just really different than us. You'd think, oh, our DNA must be like vastly different, but it's not. Like we have mostly the same DNA as a worm, I think it is, or a fly, I can't remember, or maybe it's a mouse. Anyway, uh, you know,
Something.
it kills if it's a worm. I mean, it kills a worm. It kills a cutworm when it eats it. So I don't know how much of that or what of that gets passed through,
I
but it's
wonder, you know, I wonder,
interesting to think about.
I wonder if you fed a cutworm a hamburger.
What if I tried to get a cutworm
If
to eat me?
yeah, what would happen if I
If
fed myself to a cutworm?
would the cutworm die?
The cutworm die.
That'd be a
If
good
I was eating that corn.
good experiment to suggest
I
to
mean,
my
just a little thing
daughter.
to try.
She's doing science right now. We could suggest that experiment.
There we go. You know, it's interesting. I did see a meme on Facebook, and someone had taken an ear of corn. You know how they'll like stick them on a nail, and birds will come pick at the ear of corn and
Mm,
eat it.
mm-hmm.
And someone put a GMO, genetically modified ear of corn up there and then an organic one up there.
Mm-hmm.
The birds ate the organic one and
Hmm.
left the GMO one alone. They pecked a few
Huh.
at the top but otherwise left it alone.
Huh.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Well,
thought that was kind of interesting.
that is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty
Yeah.
interesting for sure.
Yeah. Again, that's a whole science, and I wish I could sort of like talk intelligently about it, and I really can't. But you got to think like, there got to be some potential consequences of that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I had a friend that he was really into researching this sort of thing. Was
Mm-hmm.
really into the organic farming versus the chemical farming that we do
Mm-hmm.
now. And he was saying, I want to say it was Princeton or Stanford,
Mm-hmm.
did some 30-year study on the differences and which had
Mm-hmm.
better yields and so on and so forth.
Right.
And they figured they could get a good snippet, in a 30-year window just based on regular weather and who knows what.
Right.
Apparently, the organic did far better
Hmm.
than the other stuff.
Did far better as far as what goes?
Did better than the GMO, the GMO corn and the stuff that was getting the fertilizer and
Uh-huh.
all that, just growing it organically.
Hmm.
Because in my understanding, in order to activate, um, a lot of the chemicals in that they spread, is you have to get them wet. There has to be water in order to activate them. So they're
Mm-hmm.
essentially inert until water hits them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a drought year. Um, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's
Mm.
some interesting little things about it, and I don't know a ton about it.
I
I
have
don't know a ton about it.
a suspicion that there might
Yeah,
be some side effects
yeah, for
somewhere
sure,
along the line.
for sure. And I know that uh, I've just seen a lot not that Facebook is a wonderful news source. I mean, especially nowadays,
Right.
but but I mean, probably a great entertainment source for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I've seen a lot of memes, anti this, anti that around H or GMOs and all that stuff.
Oh, well, of course, there's the whole, glyphosate. That's what's in Roundup. That's the big. I'm sure you've heard. Have you not heard that term, glyphosate?
I have heard
That's
it. Yeah.
that's the big, I guess, chemical that I think is in Roundup, which some people that around this coronavirus thing are saying, that it unmasks, that the coronavirus unmasks the extent to which our nervous systems and our immune systems and our systems in general are kind of being overwhelmed by the toxins, the various toxins in our environment, whether that's EMFs or whether that's chemicals in the water or in our food.
Really?
Glyphosate being one of those. It's sort of like saying it sort of unmasks or uncovers our sensitivity to those things, somehow. And
Huh.
so there are
Sounds like
a guy that I hear talking, he talks about, that, well, and he talks about how the microbiome, again, we have 70 trillion some odd cells in our bodies, and there are like 5 to 10 times more microbes in and on our bodies than that. And basically we're swimming in a sea of microbes, and there's a way in which there's a direct connection between us and everything in our environment, the plants and everything in our environment, and those the microbes, viruses and bacteria and fungi, they interact with the ground, and they interact with food, and we eat the food, and we get them in our gut, and those microbes digest our food for us. They basically are our immune system. And he's saying that sort of really I've heard, the relationship about our microbiome and our gut biome, especially heard about that before, and the impact that can have on a number of levels. But he kind of like drew the connection too between those microbes and the ground and the land and the plants and what we're doing, and what were the toxins that are in our environment, saying that the whole thing is kind of off kilter, and things
I actually watched that video because you posted it on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I watched
Dr. Zach something.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Of all the videos and I've watched a lot of videos since this whole sequestering thing has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
Whole quarantine thing's gone down. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. And of all of the people I've watched talk, that guy makes the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
That video you posted.
Yeah.
I really do. Because he was talking about how they found a tribe in Africa or South America or something that they estimated had been remote for thousands and thousands of years, had never seen it. And they tested their biome versus ours. And they had such a diverse biome inside of themselves that it was incredible.
Right.
And I thought it was interesting. Like we had essentially, I think it was, he said we're down to like 10% of what they have, or it was some statistic like that was just incredibly.
Did the same guy that we're talking about, he's the one that said that?
Yeah.
His name is Dr. Zach Bush.
Zach Bush. Yeah. I thought that interview was great. Was it Dell? What's the guy, the interviewer's name? I kind of thought he was funny.
I did not pay any attention to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that guy. He's kind of anyway, I got a kick out of that guy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. But anyway, but that made a lot of sense to me because he equated viruses and bacteria to like a prairie.
Mm-hmm.
And how prairie has this huge ecodiversity going on, and it's a healthy, balanced system.
Right.
And it reaches its own level of balance just on its own.
Right.
And that we're actually designed to be the same way in terms of bacteria and viruses and so forth.
Right.
And that if you take a field and you plow it in and you start growing corn and growing all these other things, and you have weeds that come in there, and it's like weeds are the land's natural way of trying to rebalance itself.
Right. He was saying that. I was trying to kind of figure out how exactly that is, but
it made sense to me.
Because when he says it's part of he's like, if you take a chunk of prairie and you like raise it somehow, then weeds will pop up. I gather like the weeds are kind of like, again, like there's lots of viruses in our bodies all the time that our body's fighting off that you never really know about it, and bacteria and stuff. There's keeping the ecosystem in check. But kind of like, just like he says, if you raise a piece of prairie, then weeds will come up. Like the weeds were, I don't know if he's kind of saying the weeds were always there, but they're just kind of like being kept in check. The seeds and stuff are always there and they're being kept in check. And then when they have an opportunity to grow up, they do. It's kind of like the same thing in our bodies. If our body's not keeping the ecosystem in check, then weeds or viruses, weeds pop up and proliferate. And as far as our bodies go, I certainly ascribe to that and notice that in my work that I do, that the symptom is the disease is the cure sort of thing. The symptoms are the cure. They are your body what your body goes through as it tries to reestablish the ecosystem. I'm not exactly sure how that works though, as far as the land goes. Like really, like if a bunch of weeds grow up, he's saying kind of like that's part of the ecosystem's process of reestablishing itself, and like those weeds will eventually go away and grass will grow in its place.
No, what we call weeds is the grass itself. It's like what naturally grows is the grass, but a weed is, well, A weed is any plant that's growing somewhere that you don't want it to be,
Right.
that you're trying to control.
Right.
And so, like, you could have a rose bush growing out in the middle of a cornfield and it's a weed.
It would be a weed, right?
It would be a weed.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to
Right.
look at, but it just doesn't belong there.
It's not what we want there.
Not what you want
It's
there.
not
So
what we want there.
right, right. That's exactly it.
Basically, I guess you're right. It's like if we don't want it there, it's a weed. But yeah, the truth is you can, if you know your stuff, you can pretty much find, you can eat a lot of it. A lot of the stuff that's growing wild, the weeds, you could eat a lot of the weeds that are growing around. I've heard.
Tons of stuff from what I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that he made that analogy and that really landed for me, because he was talking also about how as a society we're too sterile.
Mm-hmm.
We're so worried about getting some bacteria in our systems
Mm-hmm.
because we've got everyone's so worried about the cooties.
Right.
And we don't realize that those cooties are actually good for us.
Sure.
That if we grow up eating dirt, it's a healthy thing to play in the dirt.
Well, that might be something to say. I think maybe I saw some sort of study potentially about people that live in the country and their immune systems. Like, my body has encountered all sorts of stuff. I mean, the amount of dirt, the amount of animal feces that I've probably ingested.
Oh God. Yeah.
The
crazy
amount of other stuff that, my body has ingested living on a farm is just,
yeah.
You probably would freak out if you knew how much dirt you'd eaten.
Well, not just dirt, but like pig shit and
shit. Let's say it. Shit.
It's just like, because I remember growing up, man, we had.
Oh yeah. Talk about the people are afraid of the Hunta virus and mouse poop. I mean, I gotta think like how much rat and mouse poop and all sorts of stuff I must have ingested growing up.
I know I tons of it.
We go on. I'd cut you off there.
No, it's totally fine. Just no. Even bring up the mouse poop. I remember, pitching out the chicken coop.
Yeah.
Chicken shit was always the worst. But it was dusty. It hung in the air. You're breathing it in your lungs. You're getting that cow. That you're getting
dust,
that
all the dust.
That the fecal matter in your lungs.
Yeah.
In your mouth. We're going out to the pig barn and there's just liquid manure everywhere and you splash it and of course it gets in your mouth and gets up your nose, it gets in your eyes. Like we were constantly bombarded by feces. Like we were in it.
And that was my specialty. My specialty was, we had like I don't know how many head of cattle we had at that time. A bunch of head of cattle. We had, I think Dad said 500 head of hogs at one point.
That's a lot of hogs.
And we milked 120 head of milk cows at one point.
I'm glad you didn't say you were going to milk those hogs.
No, we didn't milk the hogs. But, my specialty, one of my jobs was like moving all that shit around.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of shit.
I remember doing that.
That was my specialty.
Oh yeah.
Going in those hog pens, like you said, like in the winter, they had to be bedded and it just had to do it every day because it's so cold out. And those
cold,
hogs, and you just step in those cement hog pens and you'd step in there and the hogs would go boo, and they just like would start running and just like.
Oh yeah, and they would all run at the same time.
You'd just get
this splatter you.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is I had that experience, and we also ate. Like my mom always grew a garden.
Mm-hmm.
We had
my mom too, yeah, and my grandma, yeah.
The meat came off the farm. I assume yours probably did also.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean that's.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, they would have a cow butchered for sure, and that was what was in the deep freeze. Yeah.
Yeah, or pig. We had that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we were eating steak one night, and this is back when I don't know. I was probably 12 years old or 13 or something like that at the time. And my parents would always hold back one steer and let it grow up and get way bigger than every other one. And that was the ones, like, we'd always get to know that steer a little bit because it was around longer than all the other animals. And every once in a while, we would, like, that steer would become kind of a pet. I remember eating steak one night and goes, "Oh yeah, I think this is Charlie."
Right.
No,
Right.
nope, 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 nope. That was not appropriate. That was not appropriate.
Didn't keep you from eating it though, did it?
No,
Or
but
did it?
I did have like a little pang that went on for that moment. I was like, I didn't need to know that.
I was pretty hardened, I guess.
Well, that was, I mean, that was one of the downfalls of growing up on a farm. Really, was the distancing between myself and the animals, because you just knew they were going to go die somewhere.
Well, there's just like the cycle of life was just like so apparent. I mean, if you got 500 head of hogs and you got, I mean, there's stuff. We had a barrel, for dead animals that we were hauling down to the creek all the time, or that the rendering truck would come and get a cow or a steer. I mean, there was just a pile of dead stuff at the end of our lane.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep. Just dead animals constantly.
Yeah.
So
the cycle of life is very apparent. How many times, I don't know if you did much of this, but like when I was a little kid and we farrow, what you call farrowing hogs. So you get a bunch of sows and they get bred, and then they go in these crates where they can't turn around, and then they would have their piglets. And if like sometimes, just like, sometimes with cattle or with pigs, or like new, first time having given birth, they maybe have trouble sometimes. And if I remember I being 9 years old and you had just the right size arm, I would have to go in there and pull the pigs out. Like, I don't know how many times I've been up to my shoulder in pig or cow.
Now you dance delicately around that.
Did I dance delicately around that?
It's like you stick your arm up a pig's vagina is what you do. To get up there to get you feel around for the feet, and then
that means their butt is right here.
Right.
A pig or a cow, it means their butt is right there.
Got your shoulder deep in there, and you got the bung right inches from your face.
Yeah.
Yep. And you just feel around for legs.
Mm-hmm.
Pull them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, because you can't leave them in there. The sow will get sick and die. I remember that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we had a cow one time that was giving birth, and she was having problems. And I remember she'd gotten like the calf halfway out. She had the legs. The only thing were sticking out of the cow were legs sticking out. And couldn't get the rest of the calf out.
Right.
We took Noah's my neighbors that did this. They took a fence puller.
Yeah.
And they tied it up to a pole in the barn. They took and looped it around the legs of the calf, and they started cranking on that thing and just pulled that calf out. And that calf came and it literally just bounced off the floor. I was like, oh my God, what an introduction to the world.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I've pulled probably hundreds of, we had milk cows. And so all of those, 120 head of milk cows, and all of those cattle at one time, they would be given birth at a certain part of the year, and you'd have to go because the heifers, the ones that were first time mothers, again, they had trouble sometimes, and you'd have to go all night long and check in the yard and see. And what you'd always see is like these hooves sticking out the back there. And we had a calf puller thing. It had it was like a long arm with a thing like this. Under against their butt.
Under the butt, yeah.
And then it had a crank, and you tie it onto their calves' front legs. Hopefully, it was usually supposed to be the front legs. And then just crank. And you had to keep cranking because when it was hard, when the hips come and the shoulders come to that narrow opening, that cow, she was the first time, she would just like the pain, I guess, and everything.
Yeah.
She would just like fall over. And so that would create a problem. And so you had to get that calf out of there before she fell over.
Yep. Yep.
So it's quite an experience.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, that was
It's the circle of life.
life, man. That was an interesting way to grow up. Definitely saw a lot of things. Uh,
Mhm.
it's like, and you don't even think about it, but imagine some people listening to this are going, this is just horrible. This is
Yeah.
terrible. What happens to
Oh,
these animals?
I'm just
I
getting
was like,
started. Oh my God.
yeah, like this is the tame version of it all. Like
Yeah.
this is like, that's not
You
even one
had
of the really graphic stories.
you had pigs. How about when you had to castrate and
Oh yeah.
cut their eye teeth and their tails off
Yep.
and give them shots? It was like
Shots. It
uh,
was shots. You gave them iron. Um, it was iron, and then there was another shot of LA 2000, whatever that was,
right.
and then
I
you
know that stuff.
clip their needle teeth, so they
Yeah,
otherwise they would suck on the
they'd bite
mother's
each
teeth
other,
and
or
bite each
they'd
other with
bite
them
each other.
and gnat
Yeah,
up, and then you clip their tails,
yeah,
and then if it was a boy, if it was a male pig, you cut their nuts out
yeah.
and spray a little iodine on that, and you set them
With
free.
yeah, with no anesthetic
No
or
anesthetic.
anything, just
You just
hold them
slice
down,
them and pull them out.
squirt some iodine on there. Yeah,
Oh my god.
pull the testicles. Yeah, I start trying to tell these stories sometimes to people,
Oh.
and they're like, "Jesus, stop!" I mean, is
Yeah,
it
they're
is
like,
it's a hell realm of sorts. I mean, it's
it
like
is.
the screaming,
Yeah.
hundreds of little pigs all screaming, just
Yep.
noise, and you pulling
Yeah.
their testicles out, and you throw it on the floor, and the dogs come and just
Pull them
like
up and eat
gorge
it.
themselves
Yep.
on
Yep. Yep.
testicles.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
quite a scene we've just
Pretty
painted.
horrendous. The worst was when one would escape notice, when one of the boars would get through without getting castrated and would grow up to be about,
Mm,
get up to be about 180 pounds, and then be
mm.
like, oh, we had
It's
one
got
that
it's got a
slipped
testicle or
through.
something.
And so then my dad and I would go tackle it and hold it down, and either mom or one of my sisters would go cut him out.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
Oh my god! And that was always the worst. And then Tani, of course, would throw them at me. That was.
Oh, fun and games on the farm.
But here's the thing: is I growing up, I could never castrate one. I never could. I just
Hmm.
couldn't do it, and I refused. I wouldn't.
I don't think did I ever do it. I don't think I ever did it.
I
I was
didn't.
always
My
just
mom
holding
did
them.
though, man.
I was holding them.
Yeah, I held a lot of them.
Oof.
I
Ugh.
held a lot of them. I watched mom do a
Ah.
lot of them, but I couldn't do it myself.
Ah,
It was too much for me.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable in my groin and my belly area right now.
Yeah, that was always it, man. It was just like, I'm sorry, little dude. Like, oh my
Hmm.
god, I don't want to be a part of this. I really don't.
I didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better either.
It's just what we did.
Yeah, it's really, and that's really kind of the only way you could do it, was just really not knowing any better.
Hmm.
It's just the way you grew up, and it's, you didn't think about it. It
Yeah.
was just that this is how we're making our living, and this is all I
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So this is what's normal.
Yeah.
You don't think twice about it.
Yeah.
And
I
then
definitely
you get
got.
out into the world and you're like, oh my god.
There was a way in which I definitely was hardened towards death.
Yeah.
Just seeing all that stuff, and I must confess, I've done some horrific things to animals myself. I mean, like I ended up kind of being the assassin whenever there needed to be one that
Oh
needed to be
yeah.
put down or put out of its misery. I
Yeah.
I ended up doing that.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I
yeah.
I couldn't. Well, no, my dad normally did that. Like, sometimes we'd have pigs that were born that you could tell they were, because we'd have mentally handicapped pigs or like a retarded pig. I don't know if I can use that word anymore, but that's what we called them,
Right.
And they'd
Right.
have like, they might have two heads, or they might have like two snouts. We had one born one
Some
time that had,
deformity or something. No
yeah, some
legs
major
or
deformity, like 5 legs or
yeah.
only
Right.
two, or just weird stuff. And
Right.
dad would always take care of them, and or would butcher butcher a hog on the farm or butcher a cow on the farm, and watch them just go up and shoot them in the head and cut their neck, and just
Yeah.
it was too much.
When I was a kid, I remember dad taking my little brother and me, went to there was kind of a local meat packing plant, just a local, kind of like a local small one, butcher place where they butcher animals. And we brought a cow, and I don't know what my dad was thinking, but we watched the guy hit that cow in the head with a sledgehammer.
Oh my God.
That's how he killed it. And then
Oh my God. Really?
immediately just start cutting its skin off. And I got sick on that one. I remember being like, "Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
got sick. It was
Yeah.
too intense."
You know what's interesting now is like, and when I was in high school too, I had traps. I would set traps out for coons and for possum or for fox, and because you could get $25 for a skin back in those days, and it was, you could actually make some money at it. But I mean, now, like, I can't shoot a gun at an animal. I couldn't, like, there's
Right.
no way. I've got my
Yeah.
family all hunts. Like neither of my parents do, but I've got uncles and tons of cousins that run out and hunt deer and coon and frogs and everything else, and
Mm-hmm.
rabbit. I can't bring myself to shoot anything anymore. Not
Yeah.
not anything, not even a little bit. Like
Yeah.
there's just no way. No way.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Man, it's been a long time
Yes.
since I thought about this stuff. The stuff that we're talking about, like
Right.
I've forgotten all the stuff that we used to grow up around. Like, this is really crazy, man.
Yeah.
This is really crazy.
Kind
Think
of
about.
kind of an intense, kind of an intense environment
Yeah, totally
on a
intense.
number of levels.
Lots of levels. Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, we had hired this woman who used to work for us, and she had just a huge heart for animals, and just like so much death and so much animals not really being treated well sometimes, and
Yeah.
she was constantly just like, "Oh my God," like crying over all, like every day there'd be something to cry over, and all of us sort of like hardened. I was just following suit, following what's
Yeah.
the model that's been laid down for me, which is a pretty, like, you harden your heart to all those things pretty quickly. And so we were like, what is this, this crazy lady, like making fun of her all the time, because she was always crying over some calf, like some calf is dying, and here I come with the rifle to do my
Yep.
job, and she's like, "Oh no, no." I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yep. 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 Yep.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
some
do.
good stories.
On the other side of it, though, I do miss them. Like right now, I'm back in Illinois and
Mm-hmm.
at my parents' place, and there's there's this road, I don't know, about halfway, a mile away, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a great place to go for a run. It's just this gravel road. It goes back in the woods, and
Mm-hmm.
you get down to this bottom, and there's a bunch of cattle down there, and
Mm-hmm.
man, it's great to just go for a run down there and just
Mm-hmm.
hang out with the cows.
Mm-hmm.
Cows are like,
They come check you out.
oh yeah, oh yeah, they come right over, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
breathing on you, and
Mm-hmm.
they nuzzle you a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
they're just docile,
It's
loving.
true. They are pretty friendly
Oh my
animals.
God, they are so
Docile,
friendly.
friendly animals. Yeah.
They're kind of like
Yeah.
overgrown deer in a certain way,
Yeah.
minus the ability to run.
Right.
Like, they're like really big fat deer.
Yeah.
They're just,
Right.
cows are. I love them.
Yeah.
Love
You
going
see
down
them
there and just hang out.
playing, and they play, and yeah, they maybe seem they have a sense they might feel joy,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which.
It's interesting. You watch like you don't see it as much in the older animals, like a grown sow or a grown
Mm,
sheep or a grown cow. They're all pretty just like,
mm,
they'll just kind of stand there or do their
mm,
cow, sheep, pig
mm.
thing or whatever.
The younger ones.
But the younger ones,
Mm-hmm.
they'll run and jump around. They'll like
Mm-hmm.
run into each other. They'll bounce into the walls. They're
Right.
like,
Right.
they're bouncing off each other, bouncing off of life all the time. And it's like, I know they're feeling joy, you know, or I've seen where a cow's calf passes away and that mother will stand there, will stand there over the calf and not, or a sow, you take her pigs away. Oh my, just like I remember watching sows attack people. I've watched a lot of people get attacked by sows from, trying to wean the pigs or something.
Right. Yeah. If they can feel joy, then they must feel suffering because of their environment or.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It really wasn't until I went to college that I ran into animal rights people and started hearing about, animal rights and stuff. And at the time I was I was like, what are you talking about? They're just animals. And whatever.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Luther in Decorah, Iowa.
Okay. How big of a school was that?
We had 2,500 students. So not very big. Right. It's, small college.
Right.
But there were some animal rights people that were there. Right. And I remember getting into conversations with them and stuff. And, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, well, how could you think that this is mean? It's just how it is. And, it took years before that actually sank in. I was like, wow, that was pretty horrific what we put those animals through. Like that, that wasn't cool at all, man. Not even a little bit, thinking back on it. It's like, geez, I'll be honest with you, I think it's a horrible industry. But
it's probably, it's better on the, on the small farm, man. Like we experienced it, than it is on the large scale. It's still pretty brutal on the small scale.
Yeah.
But how you gonna feel? People have to eat. You can that guy. The guy is probably like animal activist in Decorah, Iowa, or Decorah. Where?
Decorah, Iowa, yeah.
Decorah, Iowa. I mean, like, was that guy a vegetarian?
It was actually a girl.
Was she a vegetarian?
I don't know.
Probably not.
I really don't know. Probably. I remember even at that time, that was a crazy idea to me. I was like, a vegetarian?
Yeah.
What? Tell me what this is. Like I had no idea.
Yeah. Yes. During this coronavirus thing, like because of the supply, the chain, the delivery chain, all messed up. Like a farmer who raises. I was watching like people who raise cattle and pigs and chickens. They just have it timed so that those chickens or those pigs or whatever are raised just, we got a certain amount of time, and then a truck comes and gets them and they get shipped off. And there's more behind them, and those get shipped off, and that chain got all messed up. And so like farmers have like one story I heard of like a pig farmer, like he had to put down like 4,000 pigs and just shove them in a hole. Or chickens, like I can imagine there's just probably millions of chickens have been killed.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, and shoved in a hole because they can't.
It's happening all over the place.
Right. Meanwhile, there's a shortage of meat on the shelves in some places.
It's the packing industry.
Right.
That, the Chinese own the packing industry here, or a lot of it, and they shut all these plants down. Richland, I think it was, and so now there's a surplus of all these animals, and they're all just getting killed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're just euthanizing all of them.
Yeah,
it's really sad. It's really sad. It's what's interesting is that hasn't really made the news very much.
Right.
I haven't seen much of that. And I keep waiting to hear something on Facebook or see something broadcast and it's not making the rounds. I think but what, the thing with this coronavirus thing, it's like, it's exposing all of these things about our system that just don't work.
Right.
It's like our like that system just doesn't work.
It's not sustainable. It's like uncovers the unsustainability of it. I mean,
Yeah.
if any part of it collapses, it just takes a day and then it's all goes to shit.
The whole financial ecosystem just takes a dump
Right.
down the
I mean, how long did it
tubes.
take for, stores to just be empty and then that's it? Like you got like 2 or 3 days to get your toilet paper.
That part still blows me away. Like, what are people think? Like, you have a respiratory issue, you better go get some toilet paper.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why?
I have a comment on the I think I could go someplace with the whole vegetarian meat eating issue.
Yeah. Let's go there.
I think there was again, we're just so disconnected from how our food gets from that live animal to our table. We don't kill it, someone else kills it. It's a factory process, with no one paying any attention. Machines do a lot of it. There's no intentionality in it whatsoever. And I think maybe, that is just is one big factor. There's no reverence whatsoever. There's a book, people say like, you just shouldn't eat anything that has a face or whatever. You shouldn't eat anything that has eyes. You shouldn't eat these sentient beings that, are close to us, but you should eat plants. But there was a book called The Secret Life of Plants. And this guy, I don't know exactly if I can do the story justice, but he was writing about some guy who was connected very closely to the development of the lie detector machine. What's that? What are they called? What's the more proper term for it?
Oh, something to grab.
I can't remember what the term for the lie detector machine is, but what is that? Lie detector. Polygraph. Good work. He had developed some version of the polygraph or whatever, and accidentally, while he had it in his house, and he was experimenting, I think, at home, and I don't know how accidentally he had it hooked up to some plants. And
accidentally hooked it up to some plants, huh?
No, he had it hooked up to some plants.
Okay.
And I can't remember how exactly it happened, but he wasn't paying. He kind of like forgot about the fact that he had it hooked up to these plants, and he was doing certain experiments on it. And something like, he decided he needed to get rid of one of these plants or something like that. And like that plant started to sort of freak out just at the fact that he was thinking about getting rid of it. And he started doing experiments like thinking about burning it with a cigarette, or thinking about, doing the plant harm, and the plants would supposedly respond. You could see them responding on this polygraph machine. And he did it with eggs also.
Eggs?
Eggs. He did it with eggs too, somehow. Just showing that there's a response to just even the thought of injuring them. But if you were going to eat them, if you prayed over them and were reverent and said thank you for this, there was a way in which they kind of went into a trance, sort of. The plants kind of like surrender. They kind of like flatline on the polygraph. They kind of like they go into a trance. They surrender somehow. They're not all, if it's like you're just going to go after, if you're going to go after a plant and do it harm, it's like freaking out. But as soon as you pray and say, thank you for becoming part of me or whatever, they kind of go into a trance and they allow themselves to be eaten. Which makes me think, like in certain cultures, there was like shamans, and shamans, they would help figure out where the food was going to be, where the animals were going to be. And
Yeah.
then they'd go out there and an animal would present itself.
Literally present itself. Yeah.
Animals would sort of give themselves up in a way to becoming food for these humans, because they were doing rituals and
Yep.
very, in touch and very in touch with the spiritual nature of what they were doing, which is like, taking this life to add it to their own. And I think that is people say you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but I think that is the impasse. That's the key. There's no reverence and no awareness of what we're doing, that we're taking these lives and adding them to our own. They just get killed somewhere that we don't even know about by, and
Yeah.
don't even think about it
Just
until
shows up on our plate.
shows up on our plate. Yeah. So that's my
That's a
thoughts
great
about
point,
that.
Jay.
That's my thoughts about that.
That's a great point. I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that particular experiment before, but that's pretty fascinating.
And certainly there are people who it would be hard for me to do, but people have raise their own, they make it a point to like raise their own food, and like they eat their own animals,
Yeah.
I mean, it just definitely, if you had to like kill your own chicken or kill your own goat or whatever,
Yeah.
boy, you'd have a different
I yeah.
perspective on your food.
Jesus, yeah. I mean, I honestly, when it comes to food and it comes to all that, I I was vegetarian for, I don't know, I did it for like a year and a half or something like that, where
Mm-hmm.
I just did vegetables, and it wasn't because it was I thought I did it because for my own health.
Right.
Actually, it was I got to where I remember I was eating a burger one time, and I had this experience. It was sort of transcendental, if you will, where I could actually feel the fear in the cow before it
Mm.
was slaughtered. I
Mm.
could feel it. I could taste it. It was in the meat somehow, and I was
Mm.
like, ugh, like
Mm.
what the hell?
Right.
Oh my god, like this is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible. And so I like, okay, no way,
Mm.
man. And so I went vegetarian for I
Mm-hmm.
was for a while. And then I remember I was living in a Buddhist Zen center at the time, and I went out to eat one night, and I had been having problems sleeping. I could not sleep, and my body was kind of shaky, and I just always felt ungrounded and just kind of not present in my body.
Right.
And I remember I went out to eat one night and I ordered spaghetti, and I ordered with just the marinara sauce and noodles, right?
Right.
And they came out, and I was hungry, and they came out and they had brought the meat sauce. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, no, I didn't want this. And they're like, well, we can take it back. I'm like, well, just one time won't hurt. I'll be fine.
Right.
But I
Right.
remember I ate that, and within
Mm-hmm.
half an hour, that uneasy, shaky kind of feeling that I had going on inside that had
Mm.
been lingering for months,
Mm.
it went away, and I slept like a baby that night.
Mm. Mm.
And something told me, it's like, you know what, there's something in this that you do need
Mm-hmm.
some hamburger or something
Right.
once in a while.
Right.
And so now I just listen to my body. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
eat, I do a lot of salmon and a lot of chicken.
Mm.
And well, since I've been living here with my parents or whatever, it's like I have been eating more beef than usual.
Mm-hmm.
But normally it's just
Hmm.
normally when I'm like on my own schedule, I'll do beef like maybe once or twice a month,
Right.
something like that.
Hmm.
But it's always when my body's asking for it that I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right. They say there's something about the bio sort of availability of the energy in meat. There's something about it's super rich, it's super bioavailable, and
yeah,
you can get protein from plants. You can get the protein you need, but you got to work harder to make that happen. And it's not as sort of like readily bioavailable as meat is, I guess.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what they say.
I've heard. I know a doctor that's her whole platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's the bioavailability of proteins and stuff and meats and the energy and all that stuff with it. So it's definitely something that's out there for
Right.
sure. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. You know, when in terms of consciousness and how we evolve on this planet, I don't believe that we're going to always eat meat. I don't believe that's something that we will always do. I believe we'll eventually evolve out of that.
Right.
We'll have other means of getting what we need.
Right.
I mean, there are kids being born right now that just they won't do it.
Right.
They just won't
Right.
do it.
Right.
So it's already just kind of happening.
Right.
So
Yeah.
pretty interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Well, Elon Musk, speaking of him, he's I think it's him. Or maybe it was Bill Gates again, have a company for making like synthetic meat, which just sounds delicious.
Oh no. Yeah, there was the how does it go? Someone came out with a hamburger that is fake meat. It's like a chemical burger or something. I don't know what they make out of. I shouldn't say chemical burger, but it actually looks like
lab somehow.
I mean, it looks like beef, and it has like you got the red in the middle and everything. It's like it looks just like a hamburger.
I'm getting hungry, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too. Just gotta go get about gnaw on a cow leg or something.
So, well, just a reminder, 5:00 is the cutoff point. So
5:00. 5:00. All right, and it's
so we got about
all right
40 minutes here. So
well, I guess we can drop in and see what they got to say. Okay, so here we go. You have been talking about the flows of life. You're talking about the flows of life. This has been the essence of today's communication. Has been about the flows of life. I am Earth. I speak to you as planet Earth, and I speak to you also as the energetic frequencies of what you call Earth. I am the flows of magnetism. I am the flows of frequency. I am the flows of energy. I am the flows of information. I know the natural rhythms. I am the rhythm itself. I am that which creates balance, harmony, and flow. I am much like you. much like a human. I need balance. I cannot survive alone either. I need the sun. I need the other planets. I need the other solar systems. And I need this universe. To me, my universe, this universe, is my home. The universe is my home. And I am learning about the universe. I am learning about the magnetisms and the flows of the universe. I have been learning about the universe for quite a while, just like you have been learning about me for quite a while. The proportions are different, of course, but there are certain ways in which you can harmonize with the flows and you can harmonize with the frequencies, and ways that you cannot. There are ways that things are harmonious, and there are ways in which things are not. At this time, in this universe, I am the odd duck, as you would say. I am different from most other planets in most dimensions because I have a frequency that sets me apart and makes me different. I have you. I have humans. I have different types of life that is multi-holographic, is multi-dimensional. I too am different from all else in the universe. And this is why you are here. You are here because I am here, and I am here because you are here. Much like I am learning how to balance myself within the universe, you are learning how to balance yourself with me. Of course, in time, you will have to balance yourself with the universe, but that is just a little too much for right now. Now, you're more focused on me. You really think you're focused on yourselves, but it's me that you're most concerned with. There is an innate peace within you that knows that you want to live. This innate peace also knows that without me, that you cannot. Therefore, this peace is what is currently coming to life in a lot of you and creating a desire for greater balance. You could say that this is the peace that has been distant, that has been separate, that has been removed. It is this peace that knows congruence, that knows flow. It knows it's a piece of something bigger. And it knows how to fit in to that which it is naturally a part of. This peace that is within you, that I am referring to now, is what is finding its new balance and harmony within you. If you want to dig a little deeper, you would find out that this piece in which I speak of is a layer within your DNA structures. It is in the DNA structures of the cells of your body. The survival mechanism, as it has so often been called, is beginning to get grounded, is beginning to find its peace, is beginning to find its balance, and beginning to remember that it fits in. This is creating all kinds of change on your planet, in your people. It is creating all kinds of change in your ways of thinking. It is creating all kinds of change in the ways that you want to be in this world. You see, the survival piece tells you that you're separate. It tells you that it is up to you and you alone to survive in a world that just seems to die around you. Understand that you have had a very short lifespan for quite some time on your planet. Understand also that this short lifespan is because of the separation. When you are separate, you essentially just begin to wilt. It is like a plant that has been plucked from the ground and laid out on top of the ground. Yes, the plant remains alive for some time, but because it is uprooted, it slowly dies. Understand that when you are born, you are essentially like a plant being plucked out of the ground. You are born, you do live, and you do continue to live. But you are ultimately slowly dying as well, because you are limited in what you can receive because of your separation. But this is what is changing now. This is what is changing in your time right now. Understand that what you are entering into is remembering that you are a part of me and I am a part of you. And we are both a part of the universe and something much larger. You are beginning to remember that you belong to a family. You are beginning to remember that you belong with each other. You are beginning to remember that you are a part of the grand cycle of life that takes place upon me all the time. And you look at your world and it brings pain to your heart to see what you've done to my oceans and to the land and to my skies. It pains many of you to see these things. Understand, I knew the risks, I knew what would happen when you came. Just like you know what happens when you are plucked from God at birth. These things have happened because of a belief in separation. This belief is going away. Birth now is now more like you get to keep the umbilical cord. You still walk around as if you are free, but the umbilical cord remains attached to the system. Because you will now be remembering more and more of you that you are indeed a part of the life cycles and the frequency cycles and magnetic cycles and the information cycles upon this world and in this universe and with each other. You will innately desire to fit easily, seamlessly, and gracefully into the matrix in which you live. This is what is evolving on your planet. The harshness that you are so familiar with and having to survive, having to fight for your right to have food, to have clean water, to have energy available to you in your homes. This fight is what is beginning to go away. It's implicit that you all begin operating with the flows that are organically present within me and on me. You all live inside of the flows. And you know from the stories spoken of today in your dialogue what it feels like to be separate from these flows. To step out of the natural flow and to be separate, you do things that are what you call inhumane. You do things that demonstrate and celebrate your separateness. There is absolutely a sadness that exists in the life upon on my shores and on my lands and in my waters that you do not acknowledge or recognize the brilliance that exists within it because you do not connect with life. Instead, you try to understand it. You try to understand how it works instead of being in the flow of what's working. This is what is evolving and changing. When you step into the flows of life, when you step into that and realize that you are a part of it, and you begin to flow naturally with life, you do not want to step out of that flow. You want to thrive within it. And in time, you will find as you become congruent with one flow, you will want to learn how to become congruent with more. To illustrate this point, imagine that you grew up eating food that is processed and knew no such delight as a fresh vegetable or fruit until later in life when you bite into your first apple and you have your first salad and a part of your body celebrates and says, I like this. I will choose this more often. You find yourself aligning with a natural flow. As you evolve in this flow that you have discovered for yourself, you want to deepen in this flow. And then you begin to concern yourself with where did the apple come from? Where did the salad come from? How was it treated? How was it gathered? How did it make it to my plate? And you begin to explore other cycles and you want to improve upon them. And then you find yourself improving the cycle of the way apples are grown, harvested, and delivered. You begin to grow your interest in the other cycles. This is how this process works. It evolves from the base root within you and slowly works its way out in your thoughts, in your actions, and in your words. It is a slow process that begins in individuals across the world where you want to be a part of the natural flow of life. In this natural flow, there is, of course, a give and a take, a yin and a yang, a masculine and a feminine. There is always the flow. There is always the balance. You will want to be stepping into more and more and more of these flows. And this influences those who you are close with. And slowly, humanity begins to get more interested in itself and which flows it is congruent with and which ones it is not. You can look around your world and see the differences in how it has changed in the last 20 years. Now take the changes you've seen in the last 20 years and stick them into about 5 to 7 years. This is the accelerated rate at which you are beginning to evolve at. I say this because it is the rate at which I am evolving at. You and I are not separate. We are one and always have been. And it is the gratitude that you have that enables you to be in the flows with me. Having the gratitude is what opens the energetic centers within your body in a passive way where you align your own energies with the plants and with the animals and begin to harmonize at their frequency because they have only to receive. They give, but they have only to receive. Their gratitude is implicit. It just exists. And that is how they flow, is through the appreciation that they have with life and how it serves their every need. They know that I am abundant. They know that I will always feed and always serve. Do you have questions at this time?
Thanks for gracing us with your presence. Yes, you talked about, do you feel pain? Do you feel sadness at the things we are doing to you?
Of course. Of course I do. It pains me. Not that you do it to me. I am patient. I am patient indeed. What pains me is being separate from you. It pains me to see your distance from me. It pains me that you interrupt the flows of my energy as they naturally want to move from the center of my being out into the stratosphere and back again. Humanity is a huge interruption in the flows of my own energy. In my natural state, I am compassion. I am compassionate existence. And the lack of compassion that you have for yourselves, the lack of connection that you have to each other and to me, is what pains me more than anything. But it is not something that has an emotional value to it, the way you experience emotion. It is not that way for me. It is an energetic cycle that has broken down. Now understand, there are areas on me, within me, that are pure and still connected. There are other areas where these connections have gone awry. Your cities can be the most challenging places because there is the most separation. There is the least amount of biology in your cities. This interrupts a natural part of my flows when there is such a low level of life. And so much of the distanced ideas of what you need to accomplish to have what you feel you need. This is the pain that I feel. It would be akin to you as if you were to shave your head and walk into public. It is not your preference. It does not kill you, but it makes you uncomfortable. That is how it is to me. Would you like to ask another question?
Yes. Do the natural disasters that happen on the planet, like volcanoes and weather and hurricanes and earthquakes and things like that, are they connected to the turmoil in humans? Like, human turmoil cause those things, and vice versa? Are they connected?
Absolutely. You see, humanity, you do not know your power. You do not know the power you have over me and over my systems. You do not realize that I am to obey you just as you are to live in harmony with me. We exist together. We exist as one. The disharmony, the separation, the pain and anger all gets worked out one way or another. Humanity has decided to become more loving with itself. However, there is still a huge amount of energy in the world that is from humans that has moved in a certain trajectory and in a certain way. That energy must flow and is present until it is transmuted or burned up or shifted. This is when the storms arise. It is a natural dissipation of the emotional frequencies and the frequency of separation and the interruption in the energetic flows that happen on my being. If you would equate it this way, it is like going to a chiropractor. You have a vertebrae or a joint that is out of alignment and causing discord. As soon as you go get realigned and that vertebrae pops back into place, you have proper nerve flow. So too, when I have an eruption, I have an earthquake, I have a hurricane, it is very similar to that. It is adjusting my frequency so I can have flows of energy that are natural again and organic again to me, which then enable me to naturally and organically serve and support you. This is a natural dissipation system that exists as a harmony where I am assisting you in your awakening. And as you awaken, you are assisting me in my own energy flows. It is a synonymous, symbiotic relationship. Are there more questions?
I am coming up with questions. Is this coronavirus? Is that some version of the result of a relationship between us and you?
Yes. There is some interesting things with your coronavirus. You have brought that from another place. You wanted to do that on your own. This is one of the things that is going to bring you closer to me, is that this is an attempt in the psychology of your consciousness to be separate. It is resolving that separateness. You see, the discomfort that this creates in your body is not a result of your virus. It's a result of what has been dormant within you for so long already. You are simply just being shown where you've been out of the flows within me. You're being shown where you've been out of the flows of with your own body. It is exposing you. It is exposing you to you. Of course, these are mechanisms, the energy frequencies that stand and allow the coronavirus to live. They're standing because of what was grabbed from me, but then modified and turned into what you have. This is not natural. This is not a natural part of me. You could not have a natural part of me try to heal an unnatural part of you. You, in your own devout stoicism, wanted on a subconscious level to be the ones to create your own cure, because you know on a deep level that you created your own problem. The coronavirus is your way of being separate once again to bail yourselves out of a situation. But understand, these times are changing. You will be doing this differently in the future. You will be bringing more of me into your own alignments in your own lives. And you will not do such things to yourselves anymore. you will have no need to. Do you have more questions?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think we will have to end here if you have anything to say in closing.
Be patient with yourselves. Be patient. Do not worry about me. Do not worry about my life. There is so much more inside of me than what you see in front of you on the surface. My magnitude and my power and what keeps me alive is so much grander than what you can possibly grasp at this point. I'm fine. I always have been. I will say it again. I knew what I was signing up for when you came. I knew what would happen. The time had come for me to evolve and become new, so I could help evolve this beautiful universe that I live in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing all that you do. Focus your sentiments on the gratitude that you have for the world you live on. Do not concern yourselves or toil in the pain of what you feel you've done wrong. It all returns back to Eden. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
How does Earth feel? Coursing through your energetic
Sweetheart. Oh my
system.
God. Just a
lots of love there.
just a sweetheart. Oh my gosh. Just a sweetheart.
A big mama bear.
Mama.
Something.
Yeah. Just gracious. So gracious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. I got that sense for sure.
Well, cool. Well, that's it for today, folks.
Well, folks, thanks for
Go ahead.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for being here.
New Consciousness Now. Have a great day.
We'll see you next time.